Hey everyone, the name is Kris Barocsi, and today I wanted to talk about how it really is to meet our guitar heroes. There's this general wisdom saying like, you should not meet your heroes. They will disappoint because they cannot live up to the expectations. Well, I kind of had the opposite experience, and I wanted to mention a couple of names, a couple of awesome people who I got to interview over the years on the Thomann channel. And before we get into it, a short disclaimer: this is not a show-off video like, look at me talking to all those VIPs and whatever. It's not my success, let's be honest here. This is Thomann's success, because Thomann is such a huge and relevant retailer and like music store. All those brands who sell their instruments at Thomann want to have a good relation, and they want to bring their artists, of course. So the fact that we got so many amazing guitar players on the channel is not my success, okay? So I'm aware of that, and I would never claim that it's that. My job is to make the interviews enjoyable, to make the guest feel comfortable and just cozy and whatever. You know, if I manage to do that or not, it's up to you to decide. Of course, if you watch those interviews, you'll have your opinion, and that's perfectly fine, whatever that opinion is. Just wanted to put this out there. I have a little list here with a couple of names who I want to talk about. I want to run through the list real fast and just share like my impressions, my memories of that person and that video shoot. And at the end, I might have some sort of a conclusion. We'll see. I think I do. You might want to stick around until then. And of course, that gives you time to hit like, subscribe, check out the comments, leave a comment. Of course, I'd really appreciate it. And check out the description box for timestamps, additional infos, gear I use in my videos, and my merch in case you want to grab this super duper awesome t-shirt. So the first name on my list is actually the first person I ever got to interview. I was so nervous. This was in, I think, 2016. The Thomann channel was kind of fresh still, and we didn't have a lot of experience with it. And it was just my biggest guitar hero, John Petrucci. I remember how we prepared the studio the day before already and made sure that John feels cool. I remember that I could not sleep that night and that like both of us, Phil, who was the videographer and now our team leader at Thomann in the video team, and me, that was like a two-person department back then, and we were like freaking out. And John arrived, and he was the nicest person ever. Like, the way you imagine your biggest guitar hero to be, he was exactly that. Funny, cool, no diva-esque things, you know. It was just the nicest, most relaxing environment. You could definitely tell how he appreciated our efforts, you know, making this cool, and it was just like a class human being entering the chat. And the funniest part was, which sounds like a like a fanboy's dream, he sat in my car. I took them to the signing session that they were scheduled for right after the interview. So after we had our talk, we sat in my car, Maddie, his guitar tech, behind us, and John on the right side, and we just drove to the signing session. I dropped them off, and I was like, I should never sell this car, I think. It was awesome. The next name on my list is, well, right up there. It's Steve Vai. It was the craziest story. We were at the NAMM show. I'm not even sure which year, I think 2020. We were shooting a video with Dave Friedman. what an amp legend, right? There's living proof. I absolutely adore everything that he does, and we shot an interview, like a Gear Talk, his newest amp, whichever it was back then, and the manager, or like a person, came in the room during our video shoot and said, like, Steve Vai's in the other room waiting for you now. And we were like, cool. So we wrapped up the video. We were luckily around the end section anyhow. We wrapped it up, and we didn't shoot the B-rolls, like close-ups of the amp or anything. We rushed over because we didn't want Steve to wait for us, and they will not wait forever, right? A couple of minutes and then they're gone. So we didn't want to miss the opportunity. I had zero time to prepare questions, to just set my mind up for such an important interview. So it was a tough moment for me. Super nervous, obviously. What a legend. We entered the room, did a really quick mic check and camera check, and then off we went. And he was the same class person as John Petrucci. Like, within 3 minutes, he managed to make me feel comfortable. I managed to zoom in on what we are doing and ask those things. Don't forget about those things that I always wanted to know or always wanted to ask. Like, he awoke the fanboy, and not just Steve Vai fanboy in me, but like the guitar player in me, and not the journalist or whatever that is that we're doing on YouTube. Next name is, well, Mick Thomson. Another one of my huge guitar heroes back in my metal days. Slipknot was one of the top bands I've always listened to, and I always adored the way they approach riffs and solos and everything, and guitar tone in general. I was always a huge fan, so I was obviously nervous. And I mean, if you know Mick, he's a huge dude, like tall with the mask and everything. Has a vibe of I will eat you alive. And then his voice, and I wasn't sure if he's gonna be super into this. You never know, right? So I went in this room. This was like backstage Fender area from the at the NAMM show in Anaheim, and we were waiting there for a couple of minutes, and then they told, okay, go in that room and set up. In a few minutes, Mick will join you. So we did that, and it was just like a meeting room or a conference room. And then he came, and he was just the nicest person ever. Again, a different personality, different vibe, much more rock and roll, but like appreciative, cool, open-minded, just did his thing, talked about stuff he was really excited about, even mentioned that he watched a couple of our videos and loved this and that thing, and I'm like, whoa, very, very nice, down-to-earth person. Next person on my list, Andy Timmons. Again, a fun story. Well, it wasn't fun back when this happened. Our first NAMM show, Anaheim, huge music convention. We met Andy at a booth and asked him if he has like 5 minutes for a short interview. And it was 2018, I think, our first NAMM show with Thomann. And we shot the interview. He was an absolute sweetheart. If you ever met Andy or saw any of the interviews, you know how he is. Just the nicest person ever. We shot the interview. It was awesome. I was really excited about it because he is such a huge influence in my guitar playing, taste, tone, gear selection, whatever it is. I adore everything about Andy, and I was super happy about this opportunity to be able to make an interview with him. And then the file was corrupted. It didn't play. The file was dead for whichever reason. Tech is always there to mess with you, is what I've learned. Yeah, that was painful and really, really sad for me on a personal level because, as told, I'm such a big Timmons fan. And then years later, we had the chance to do like a COVID time interview, like a Skype interview. It was amazing. He was such a nice person. And then I think last NAMM show in 2023, no, 4 actually, we met again and shot a couple of minutes. And he's just the kind of person who remembers you, which is very impressive. Like he doesn't have to do that, right? On that level, meet so many people. It's no wonder if they don't remember you. It's normal, right? But he remembered us and was just the nicest person. Again, Devin Townsend. He is one of those special human beings, like 50% alien, 50% human being. Amazing music, like super strange, beautiful, aggressive, a bit of everything kind of music. When we had the chance to interview him, I think 2018, 2019, whenever it was, I was a little afraid because I know that like everyone told me like Devin is like super intelligent, like very, very clever, and it's hard sometimes to follow him. And yeah, I was like, oh yeah, cool. Now I'm looking forward to this. Will he just eat me up alive? But then we sat down and yeah, he is like, it's hard to even put it in words how he is. Well, think of all the positive things, like a very nice, very funny, very intelligent artist, really. Like he is for me like the artist, right? Super unexpected stuff, whether it's his music or whatever he's saying, unpredictable, just a very impressive, strange, amazing human being. And yeah, that's where I learned, I think, that it doesn't matter what people think of a person. Don't listen to them. Just go into the situation, whether it's a VIP, whatever, or just anyone. Just go in that situation and just let it happen. Just do your best. And you'll see if it works or not. But Devin was awesome. Talking of awesome people, Phil X. We met a couple of times, and he was one of my latest guitar heroes, right? Maybe you remember the Fred and Americana videos that they did back when Guitar YouTube wasn't really there yet. Like barely anyone did videos except for maybe Rob Chapman and like a couple of the first YouTubers, but Fred and Americana was a big influence on my musical taste. I learned so many cool songs and riffs from Phil. Phil sort of opened up my mind for a lot of those classic rock and funk and whatever, even like jazzy bluesy stuff. And it's definitely his fault that I fell in love with P90s. P90 into a nice cranked amp is just one of the coolest sounds ever, and he introduced me to that. So I was on many levels really looking up to him. And then we had a chance to make an interview. I was again quite a bit nervous because at that time he was still like, for me, like, oh my god, it's freaking Phil X, oh my god, you know, he's an energy bomb. And he was just super nice. Again, the same thing, like chilled and respectful. And even though he managed to pull off such a crazy career within those few years, like being a really cool session dude in LA, going to freaking Bon Jovi, it's like, okay, well, and still, like the second or third time we met, I just heard someone calling Kris from behind me. I'm like, I turn around and it's like Phil. He's like, hey dude, what's up? I'm like, he remembers my name. You're not supposed to remember a random dude who you met once or twice in your life and even cares to say hi. Like that's the mentality that I think only proper pro musicians share. I've seen and heard about, you know, people being arrogant and thinking like they're the biggest and oh my god, I don't care about anyone and anything. But those who really make it seem to share a very different mindset. And I'll come back to this at the end of this video. The next person is Steve Morse. What an absolute giant musician. It was a really quick interview, was spontaneous, again, at an amp show, just standing in front of his signature amp, Angle amp, and we had a couple of minutes to talk about a few things, and he played a few notes, and it was very, very cool. I didn't feel like I'm worthy doing that because I'm not the generation that sort of got to experience his whole sort of career. So I felt like, I'm just a young dude, even though I barely ever feel young. But I did feel like too young to be worthy. But he was just such a nice, super class person. And then one of the latest interviews I did was with Tim, Henson, and Scott LePage of Polyphia, of course. And that was again something that I didn't know what to expect, because they're just a very different generation, right? These were the first sort of young, huge guitar heroes. I didn't know if they're gonna be super nice or super bored or whatever the hell, but we just had the nicest gear talk and just, songwriting talk and guitar player talk, really, ever. And they were like two buddies throughout that interview. And then I remember that when I prepared myself for this session with Tim and Scott, I've seen an interview where Tim said that when he met Steve Vai, Steve impressed him as a human being so much that he became some sort of a role model for him. Like, I want to be like Steve. And he said something, I can't remember the wording, but something like, I'm such a shit ass or something, and I don't want to be, or whatever. And like, whenever he finds himself in a situation where he wants to like reflect on himself, then he asks himself the question like, what would Steve do? He had the same impression when he worked with Steve on that collaboration song they did, that Steve is just such an ideal, such a good role model, the kind of person you want to become one day, if possible. And the moral of the story, if there's anything, is that these huge and successful guitar players tend to be more humble and just better human beings, even though they don't have to be, I guess. They could afford themselves to be much more arrogant and just, selfish and whatever. They're better human beings than a lot of us normal people, like non-VIPs, right? I think we should learn from them. I think there's a lesson to be learned from all these people, because who are we to be, I don't know, super mean to each other? Like, it's pointless, and it definitely does not help you to grow as a musician. That's again something that I've heard Phil X and Pete Thorne talking about a lot, but also other people, of course, as well. It's like, if you're not a good person, people will not want to work with you. If you're not reliable and easygoing and respectful, you will never make it up there unless you have some sort of a protective shield of managers who communicate with the world, and you're just in your bubble, and then you can be the most selfish person ever. No one will know, because no one has actually contact with you. But that's a very different story. That's much more of like a pop icon kind of situation. I don't know anything about it, so I will not reflect on that. But if you want to be a good and successful musician, it's one part is the talent, of course, but the other side is like, be a good human being and just be respectful, I guess. I know it sounds lame and boring, but hey, it works. Clearly, I mean, it works. All right, thanks so much for watching, and let me know in the comments below if you have any stories with crazy guitar heroes, whatever, level, whatever, whichever style, really. Just let me know. I love reading these stories, and yeah, maybe you have an opposite one. Maybe someone was an absolute jerk. I don't know, could happen. But yeah, I'd love to read that, and yeah, meet you in another video next week. Bye-bye.